We are now over 20 seasons into 400MILLION here in Iceland, and I think I might have a slight issue. I think I may have signed a few too many players. It is time for another season review today, as we touched on last time out in the last season review. We are currently sat in April. Our Champions League campaign unfortunately has finished, as has the European campaign for the rest of the Icelandic teams. But before we get into all that, I want to do us a massive favour, drop a like down below and comment something. I don't mind. So today is currently Thursday. What are you having for your tea tonight? Truck it in, and yeah, we'll have a chat about our respective dinners. Now, as I said in the intro, I think I may have signed a few too many players, and we need to really start with what happened last season. So, I saw you after we signed Gunnars Ugun. We then signed David Mira from PSV Eindhoven, another defensive option, young player, someone we hope we can sort of develop into being a bit of a rotation option for us at the back, but potentially being a decent loan farm player as well. 24.5 mil, I feel, is probably an overspend, but who knows, if he can develop into a decent player for us, we might be able to at least see some of that back. But yeah, I'm hoping he's got a few decent-ish technical attributes that we can turn him into a good BPD, even a rotation BPD. There's been interest in Karchenko, Bass, for example, even like players like Krokolovsky, and there's still interest in Bakker Hansen. So the fact that he's an EU player is really beneficial for us, because we play someone like Karchenko, it really, we basically only have 3 non-EU slots in the team. And yeah, if we have to play Karchenko, it really limits us. Sergio Sousa came up in one of our scout reports, and while technically he's a little bit lacking athletically, he just appealed to me. And we've signed him. We signed him from Santa Clara in Portugal for 4.4 mil, and there's already interest in him. We got interest from Arsenal, Villa, Chelsea, Liverpool, City, United, and PSG. So worst case scenario, he's not very happy because we're having issues with registration because we did sign so many players. We'd sorted all this out, and then we ended up with so much money. I just spent it all on youth team, on loan farm players. A couple of big signings for the first team, but mostly loan farmers. But we're struggling to get people in the squad. Now, one of the next signings that we made, slightly more older, more experienced signing. Obviously, we were talking about last time. A lot of our players end up leaving before we really develop this like big match preference, consistency, etc., etc., etc. And then Alexander Kozierev is someone we'd seen a couple of seasons ago when he was at Barcelona. It was worth a lot of money. But basically, he ended up being transfer listed by request, and we managed to get him for 30 million. He's on 120k a week. He's completely smashed our wage structure, but I figured he was potentially worth a punt to see if he could be someone who could help take us to that next level. Kind of like when we signed Echeverri on a free. We thought, is he someone who can maybe just give us a little bit extra in big games? Obviously, that was a couple of seasons ago. I'm hoping that Kozierev might do that for us. Some really good attributes. He's obviously been playing mainly as the advanced, the sort of the number 10 here, the attacking midfielder. But obviously, only time will tell. And at the worst case scenario, I think we end up selling him at the age of like 30, 31. I'm sure someone like Chelsea or, City or PSG or someone will come in and take him off our hands if we need to. And obviously Saudi is always an option as well. But yeah, he's currently worth more than we signed him for anyway. But yeah, the main thing really actually has been the wage structure that he's completely destroyed. But I figured it was possibly worth it. We had the money to spend. It felt like maybe it was worth taking a gamble at this point to see. Obviously after last season, where we got to the round of 16 in the Champions League, we felt like we needed something to help get us over the edge, really. And then with Portea leaving, we needed someone to fill, with a bit of first team quality, fill that number 6 slot at the regista role. And Andrei Prikodko, so we signed a Ukrainian and a Russian, and very close together. And he cost us 68 million from Genoa. He does have a release clause as part of his contract. We kind of had to give him it to get him in, and that is 80 million. And as you can see, he's actually wanted by Milan. So, you know what? Physically, he's very good. Mentally, he's decent. Likes big matches. He's actually been playing pretty well for us as well. I feel like he could be better, but he's only 22. So, you know what? If Milan come in and hit his release clause, I may well potentially just choose to sell him just for making a nice easy profit. But I don't know. I'm not convinced completely by him just because he's got that weak left foot as well. But it felt like I said, we had the money. You'll see why. And I felt like we needed someone there with a bit of something about them, and he has got that, but I don't know if it's enough yet. And now we move on to outs. So obviously the last big out that I touched on was Erwin Atanasio. And then Marcus Mellon, you remember, spent a lot of time on loan at HK. They let him come back to us for some reason. We couldn't really figure out why. And he was very much an attacking wing-back / winger. And obviously we are playing very much an inverted wing-back role, which he is okay at, but he's not. He wasn't like a Bojan Spasijevic. He's not an Eduardo Renteria, for example. So he's someone that we kind of thought he may end up leaving, even though he's very good. And he did. PSG came in, currently managed by Aurelien Tchouameni. I think what happens is I keep going on to milestones and it keeps clicking on PSG. So we signed him for 2 million and we sold him to PSG for 21.5. So, you know what? Really good profit, and he really helped fund some of what we've done for the rest of rest of the last summer window and January. And now we come on to the out of the summer, and that was Lorenzo Rinaldi. So you'll remember in the last review we touched on how there's clubs in for him, and we were worried about him potentially becoming unsettled. That happened. Chelsea bid for him. I can't remember who else. Chelsea, and I think it was Real Madrid bid for him, and we were sort of working him up because we were like, right, well, we're going to sell him, because bear in mind, we just had Atanasio and Porte. We're like, we're going to leave on, at the end of our contract in like a year's time or whatever. And I was worried about this happening with him. And then when Southampton came in and said, here's 99 mil up front with 110 mil, potentially going up to potentially 110 mil in add-ons, like some of it's like international based, etc. And he is now in the Italy squad. I think he has played. Yeah, he's played quite a few times now. Sorry, 24 caps. So he is playing in that deal, and we do have a 25% percentage of profit. Basically, it was a non-negotiable fee, so I couldn't negotiate that to just a percentage of sale. And I figured with him going to Southampton, chances are he will probably leave Southampton if he continues to play for them like he did for us. And he's done all right for them, to be fair. Nothing stellar numbers-wise compared to what he was for us, but he does play. He is starting games for them. So I wouldn't be surprised if a club comes in for him and he potentially goes for even more money, and we'll get a slice of that. But yeah, it was Southampton in the end who made the bid, which we decided to cash in on. It was annoying because he counted as a homegrown player as well, and that has knackered us slightly losing him. Because yeah, we had that homegrown quota, which he was massively a part of, but it was one of them, like 110 mil, and that fund, basically we replaced that 110 mil, 99 mil, then 30 million of that went into Kuzierev, and then the other 60 went into Prokopko. So that one sale funded us signing those two players. Just a quick one, not really an important one, but you remember we signed Philip Bernetan from somewhere in Austria. Rapid? Is it Rapid? Hartberg. For 10.5 mil, and at that point we were like, are we potentially overspent here? I think it was like 17, 18 when we signed him. We couldn't get him out into the loan farm, so we ended up moving him to our affiliate Domzala, where he did well. And then Braither came in with a bid for him of 1.5 mil. I was like, it's a massive loss. But the Icelandic club wants him. They might be able to get a tune out of him, like, because we weren't playing him because he was, he wasn't ready. But they might be able, I thought if they can get something out of him, great, he can do some good for them, and then they might sell him. He's currently potentially valued at sort of 3.7 mil, which would see them make a profit. But I thought, you know what, fine, this is kind of, I'm happy to make a loss on players if they're going out into the division. And you remember in the last review we touched on Dimitri Marmat. He ended up leaving, so he ended up going to Leipzig for 28.5 mil. He's played a lot for them in the Bundesliga. He's worth 50 to 73 mil. I'm pretty sure we've got a percentage of that if he ends up moving on. So yeah, I keep doing this. I keep going on to the wrong big one. 2.1 mil, 28.5 mil, no complaints. We use the same logic with Kamil Kochi. So again, you have to remember, we sold a lot of decent players here, and you have to remember that we'd just been burnt by the Atanasio, by the Portea deal. And when Barcelona came in for him, we had signed him for something like 2 million, I think it was, from Sparta. 9 million, blimey. Oh no, it was another player we signed who we ended up selling. And he was someone he was developing nicely. We were really happy with how he was coming on. He was very versatile. He could basically play all the way along that back three, so he was good for playing as an inverted wing back, central defender, and as the inverted fullback on that left hand side. Then Barcelona came in, and we'd had a few bids from other clubs, and he was really unsettled. And I was thinking, oh my goodness, is he going to end up turning around? He had 2 years left, I think, on his contract. Obviously, because the issue we have with all these players is when they get into like that last sort of like 24 to 20 months, because there's a lot of clubs in for them, they won't sign new deals because it's approach agent to discuss new contract, and it's like, no, I've got interest. There's clubs interested in me, and I don't want to sign a new deal. So it gets to this point where we're in a rock and a hard place where it's like, well, we can't get them to sign a new deal because there's clubs in for them. We don't want to sell them because they're good, but then if we refuse to sell them, they become unsettled, and then we're going to end up losing them for nothing. So 40 million for him from Barcelona, we were like, you know what, fine, just go, we'll get by, we'll find a way of making it happen. We were helped slightly because we had Guillermo Augusto come back. And that will lead into kind of when we talk about Europe. But basically, HK's manager left at the end of the season, so his contract expired on the 31st of October. Just as these loans to like the European Icelandic clubs, HK, Hafnarfjörður, Breither, for example, were renewing. So they refused to renew any of our loan deals because they didn't have a manager. He then joined. The new manager then joined, I think, about 2 weeks after the loan period expired. To be fair. But yeah, so we're like, well, we've got Augusto there. We had the options at defence, so it was like, fine, just go. Also helped by the fact that Johnny Bakker Hansen had somehow just naturally developed the affinity to play left back. So we're like, well, we can play him alongside Popov as the inverted fullback if we need to. So yeah, Kochi left as well. And then the final big out, which was a bit of a shame, was Daniel Björnsson again, and this is where we've lost some of our homegrown quota. So he was someone who said he was going to leave on a free transfer. We'd had a couple of clubs bid for him, mainly from Saudi. And I was like, he was good for us. He was playing well. We trained him nicely to be the regista. He was doing all right for us there. Homegrown. Came through our youth intake as well, which was the big thing. And we basically were left with no choice but to sell him. And we sold him for 25.5 mil to Inter. Real shame. He's played. Fair play to him. He's played for them. But really disappointing to end up losing him. I was hopeful that he was going to be someone who we could, carry through. He might just stay at the club for us and, be quite happy to sort of rotate around. So obviously with him leaving, that sort of further pushed the Prokopko move through. Basically because we knew we were going to have to sell him because he was anchoring for it. So we were like, right, well, that's why we pushed for Prokopko, even though it was a lot. We knew we were losing Björnsson. Now we move on to the Champions League, and we kicked off our campaign with a narrow 1-0 loss away to Milan in the San Siro. As you can see, we actually had slightly more shots, slightly better XG. It was a game of very limited quality of chance, and their goal basically came from essentially just their winger, who was it? Bernardes, I think it was, just losing his man and managing to feed in Mohamed Zaire, and that was really the only real concrete chance of the game. Fortunately, we replaced Juvenis Festa in the second game, and that really gave us a chance to bounce back after that narrow loss to Milan and get a nice comfortable 4-1 win at home. Before then, leaving it late, although not as late as last time we played Shakhtar, to get a 1-0 win away from home in Donetsk. But we then have to play Man City at home, and we lost 2-0 through what can only be described as brain farts from two of our players, which is encouraging in some ways that it took basically two individual errors to cost us. First off was Prokopko under-hitting a pass back to the keeper from around about here, which allowed Emiliano Toroni just to run onto it and smash it past Charpentier. And then playing out from the back, just like they, had the opportunity to get the ball out into midfield, out to the wing, and they just kept dicking around with it in defence, and again, got caught out, Toroni scored. And I think what was for the third season in a row, we played PSG, and after beating them 1-0 the first time around, we've now lost to them twice in a row. This time not as bad as last time out, but it was an own goal from Johnny Bakker Hansen. What was frustrating was we pulled back, and I am going to show you the goal because it was unreal. We pulled back to 1-1 straight after half-time, and then went and conceded again straight away, and then the own goal from Bakker Hansen. But this goal from Coelho was absolutely beautiful. He took it so well, but it was just a shame that he then got let down at the back again. As you can see, some of the defenders just having stinkers really. Charpentier, we are trying to blood him in a bit more. Chiapara is still very, very good. But yeah, we are trying to get Charpentier in a little bit more. But as you can see, they had 2 shots on target, PSG, and that was, you know, what got them the win ultimately. Frustrating that Marcus Malin came on as well, because obviously, you know, old player, etc. But this finish from Coelho, the little sort of scooped lob from just outside the box over the keeper was a thing of beauty. But yeah, just wasn't enough. But then we played Porto, and we had a point to prove really, and boy did we. 4-0 at home, and obviously because we're still chasing Portugal. And at this point, we were looking quite good, because obviously we were on course to go through. Porto looked like they were going to be the only team out of 3 teams going through from the Champions League as well, with Sporting and Benfica struggling, really locked in the bottom, like the bottom half of the table. Well, not even the bottom half, the bottom quarter of the table, not even in the playoff spots. But being after that, we were in with a chance of getting into the top 8, and then we went and drew 0-0 with Galatasaray, just coming back after the winter break. Even the sheer volume of friendlies we played in to help with match sharpness, just couldn't see people like Gutierrez and Coelho fire really. And Gutierrez has been a little bit poor. He finished the season on 32 goals last year. You know, when the league campaign sort of cut off in November, when everything sort of refreshes. But he's just not been able to do the same this side of the January, sorry. But then we finished off playing Feyenoord and we smashed them 4-0. But really, it was the drop points against Galatasaray which cost us, because if we'd have won that, and if we'd won it by a couple of goals, we probably would have finished 8th here instead of Arsenal. So that was a real shame. But realistically, the real reward was finishing in the top half of the playoff. It meant that we drew Freiburg, and we beat them 5-1 on aggregate, 2-1 in Germany, 3-0 at home, helped by that Peter Smith red card. You have to laugh at the sort of bitterness of some players. Guillermo Gusto literally won the ball off him about here for us, and he just 2-footed him from behind. And after that, they had no chance. As you can see, no shots on target, completely dominated the game. But we would then have to play Atletico Madrid, and everything happened in the second half. Roy looked really, really good. We knew he looked really good. We were trying to mark him. He broke away from one of our markers, scored. Daniel Stelhead, so he'd been on loan at Hafnarfjordur, for some reason hadn't renewed his loan, so he came back to us. And we threw him in, and he scored, pulled it back to 1-1 at this point. Roy completely breaks free of his marker again, smashes one in from the edge of the box, really frustrating. And then it was 3-1 through Eduardo Gomez, and thankfully Vlad Paul managed to pull a goal back right at the end to give us hopefully some sort of chance when we went to Madrid, which was nothing but a fool's hope really, as we lost 2-0 in Madrid, and that saw us go out at the round of 16 for the second year in a row. But at least we were getting there. Don't worry everyone, I will come back to the rest of the transfers that we've done. I just wanted to touch on the rest of Europe first. So Halcard did get through. I was getting confused last time out with where we were up to with the seasons, because I'd played a few, because I was kind of ready to do both. I kind of completely lost track of where we were, and they lost, unfortunately so really as well, against AIK from Sweden on penalties in the Europa Conference League third qualifying round. And they did finish in the bottom half of the table. So even though they've now moved into that new stadium, they now need to get back up there. And as you can see as well, they missed a 96-minute penalty, which would have seen them go through, which was just so unlucky. If they'd have scored that, they'd have gone through to the next round. So real heartbreak for them, to be honest with you. But they've got a bit of time to consolidate. Yeah, I think they've signed a couple of players as well in February, and they're looking like they might potentially be in with a shout, hopefully of pushing on, because I've got hopes that they might, with that new stadium, be able to go professional soon. Now, it was HK this year who went in at the Europa League phase, and obviously, as we can see, you know, the 3-2 loss to Napoli last time. They started off pretty poorly with a 2-0 loss to Valencia, but then they beat Sparta Prague, Ajax and Minsk, before losing to Çorum FK from Turkey, or Çorum, that will be on it, and then losing to Olympiacos, which I really think they should have won. And then they beat Malmö. So it was at this point that their manager changed, just before the Olympiacos game. And they then struggled, just about to sneak through really. And then they played Guingamp, which they'll be really annoyed. Goran Stojanovic, by the way, used to play for us, scoring against them. which they'll be really frustrated by. But I think just literally the fact that they'd lost so many of those loan players from us just really affected their quality. They had no... who were they missing? Was it... No. Can't remember who else came back. But we had 6 players come back from them. And yeah, they just really struggled. And yeah, cost them. Really frustrating. Meanwhile, Breither, who had come second in the league with a team who went into the Champions League, they nearly cocked it up against Olympiacos, winning 5-0 at home before getting a nice early goal through Yosimar Garayev, and then proceeding to then ship 5 goals, including a 94th minute penalty, which will have really put the fear in them. Then they'd play by Leverkusen, and they lost, and then dropped into the Europa League. Tough start, losing to Bordeaux, drawing with Brighton, but then beating Tromsø, drawing with Zrinski Mostar, which they were been frustrated by, losing to Ajax, but beating Partizan, and then winning against Bucharest and Mallorca again, before then, frustratingly, drawing both games with Braga and losing on penalties. Just so frustrating to go out on penalties. The Portuguese team in the knockout playoff round first leg, and at this point, we'd basically gone from having 4 teams in Europe in the latter rounds to 2, because you'll see why, but basically Hafnarfjordur finished in the top 8 again, so they went straight through to the round of 16. Yeah, Hafnarfjordur once again came in 8th, Breither came in 9th, just narrowly missing out, and HK actually managed to get a top half finish as well. But yeah, Breither playing Braga, HK playing Guangdong, they'll be really frustrated that they didn't get those results. And like I said, just in that one match week, we'd gone from having 4 teams to 2, with us obviously beating Freiburg and then Hafnarfjordur going straight in there. And Hafnarfjordur did it by flying past Ostende. What's that? 6? I say flying. It was 6-5 in the end. But narrowly just getting through. Obviously that loss away from home, really frustrating from a coefficient point of view, but the nice 5-3 win at home. Daniel Shellhead doing really well for them. I really don't know why they sent him back to us. I really don't know why, because he was so good for them. And then they got past Pogoń Szczecin, and then had a nice early flying start, beating Roma, Maribor and Lyngby, before drawing with Hibs, losing to Saints, drawing with PSV, and then beating AAB and Spezia, and therefore just narrowly slipping through really into the round of 16. As we saw, they came 8th, just narrowly ahead of Breither, but then lost to Hibernian 3-2. Like, what's that about at the round of 16? And then we got knocked out at that stage as well, so yeah, gutting. And what that means is, because Portugal still have a team, I think they still have Vitória de Guimarães in the Conference League, we are on course to admittedly better our last season. Portugal probably will actually lose that. So this is the season that we're both losing. So they're losing a 17. Chances are they probably won't better that. We're losing a 10. We have bettered that. But we're still on course to finish 1.6 points behind them. And we're obviously there's going to be just under a 5-point shift next season, because we're losing a 17.7 and they're losing a 12.85. So we're really going to have to do well next season and hope that they all cock up, because otherwise I can see this gap actually growing again, which is going to be really frustrating. Last 2 seasons, that season we couldn't have legislated for that. They almost doubled the points from the previous season. Let's be honest, that's just ridiculous. Look at this, 12.87, 13.5, 12.57, and then 23.25. They had no right dropping the season that good. And then we bring it back to this season's transfers. 324 million we spent, 163 million in. So we had 86 million in, 101 million out. The season before, was that? No. So that was last season, yeah. So sorry, yeah. And then this season, 238 million in. So yeah, 163 million in, 238. So that's 400 million in of the 324 out, and 101 million out the season before. So yeah, crazy, absolutely crazy. So far this season, we've sold Slobodan Jovic, bit part player really. He didn't like big matches. He wasn't very consistent. He was consistent, but he just didn't like big matches, and he didn't really suit the Regista or the Volante. He was could just about do a job for us, but he could play the inverted wing-back role if we needed him to, but never really going to be anyone that we were sort of going to be able to make into a first team star and use. And for us to make a nice sort of 7 mil profit, we were quite happy with. I feel like we do have a percentage of sell on with him as well, which considering he's worth 29 to 41 mil, we may well look to cash in on that if we can. And then other outs, Pedro Guerrero, so that was it. He was another one who came back from HK, frustratingly. Udinese bid for him. He really wanted to go there. And when we bought him in, basically as a rotation option, when we were struggling at left back, he played a little bit in the Champions League, then went out on loan to HK, came back, and then we made a nice mil profit on him to Udinese. As you can see, if you look down, HK have taken a few players back off us. And then we've had Braither and Hafnarfjord sign a few players from us, Vala getting a few loans in, which has been really good. And then the main sale was Daniel Seller to HK, so he looked quite good for us. We were thinking, oh, he could be a decent option. We were juggling the rotation options, basically, the registration options that we had. He was someone who he was only down as like either a fringe player or a squad player or something like that. So when it came to, it's really frustrating because you basically have to do an initial squad registration before the season started, even though the final squad registration window isn't probably for another month once the window closes. And basically what that does is that potentially unsettles players. You then have to make promises to register players, etc. And he was someone who we thought at the time, okay, well, you know what, we'll just leave him for now because we're probably going to try and loan him out anyway. So let's not, make any promises we can't keep. We'll just say, listen, like, we'll try and loan you out. I can't find a place for you right now, but I'll try and loan you out. And he was like, no, I want to leave. And then he was like, my contract expires in a year, I'm going to go. So we offered him out, HK came in for him, and, it was like brilliant. He's staying in the league, fantastic. We made a slight loss on him. When you see the numbers he used to put up at Hafnarfjord, like we got 28 goals in all comps there, 11, 23 in all comps. So he'll do well for them. I am under no illusion. In fact, he's played one game and scored 2 goals already. So I'm sure he'll do really well for them. A bit frustrating because I did have high hopes for him with his 19 jumping reach and his height of 6'8", but he sort of never really developed much more beyond it. His finishing and his dribbling did come up quite nicely, but I felt like realistically, are we gonna get the most out of him? And yeah, the answer was no, really. And that was it in terms of notable outs. Now we move on to all these various ins. So a lot of them are loan farm players. So I'll just quickly show you. Let me just make sure I'm not. Yeah, I'm not in the way for this. So Mark Cronin came in from Southend, 18 years old, and he's gone out on loan straight away to, I want to say, Vala, either Vala or Halkar. I think it's Vala. No, it's not. It's Trita. He's gone out on loan to. He'll just come back up. He's gone out on loan to them. David Banks has come in from Celtic. Looks a really good technical striker. He's gone out on loan. I think he's gone out on loan to Vala. Yeah, to Vala. Ivano Gabezic, he is a youngster. He's really young. He's 16. Yeah, not got his face yet properly. Same with Jan Kovar and Daniel Pamfarov, I think. Oh no, he's another loan farm player, basically. Honestly, we spent so much money on loan farm players this window. It's ridiculous. The big signing, what I'll probably do is I'll just show you the main signings for the first team. So we got Paco Renas came in from Freiburg for 62 mil in total, but 50 mil up front. And we're basically retraining him to play as a number 6. So he's going to basically turn into a regista for us with a bit of luck. But obviously he's got that versatility to play sort of anywhere along that spine. He's only 21. I reckon at the worst case scenario, he'll turn into a decent regista with that passing, that vision, and if we can work on his dribbling, and then worst case scenario, we'll sell him. We'll sell him again. But he might turn into a good player for us. Just needs to work on that consistency. Got the potential to improve a lot still. And yeah, quite happy with him. Felt like we overspent, but we did have the money, and it was like, well, we'll just spend it. David Gomez is a player we've seen for quite some time, to be honest with you. We found him when he was at Guadalajara, when I think he was like 21, 22. We just didn't need him at the time. But basically, we had, and I'll explain why with a couple of the signings we made. We had a bid from Vlad Paul from Chelsea. We rejected it because we felt it was below his value, but he wanted to move. So Milan then came in with a bid of 30 mil up front, 30 mil in installments, and international bonuses and stuff. So basically, we negotiated the fee up to 81 mil in total. So I think it was like 70 mil guaranteed, including the installments and then the rest. We accepted that bid. Oh no, it was Newcastle, not Chelsea. It was Newcastle. So we accepted that bid from Milan, and then Newcastle dropped their interest. He was like, oh, that's fine, I'll stay. Meanwhile, the bid from Milan was still under effect, and he rejected them. He stayed, which, fine. But would have got us 81 mil, potentially. But we were like, well, he's probably going to end up leaving, so we signed David Gomez. And we also signed Boga. He is someone who we found a while ago as well. Monaco bid for him. And we just basically gazumped them and outbid them. And he's had a great start. He got a hat-trick in his first game in the league. So, yeah. Again, we're kind of gearing up with the fact that Lad Paul is probably going to leave, as is Fernando Gutierrez. Fernando Gutierrez's form, like I said, has not been brilliant. He got those 2 goals in the Champions League. And then that was at the start of it. I think that was when we beat Red Star, and he's just not scored since. We found ourselves a nice little Serbian wonder kid. Basically, this was through youth team scouting, and obviously when we played Red Star as well, there was obviously quite a few playing against us then. Ilya Jokovic came in for 4.1 mil, and got decent hopes for him, but we're just trying to get him a loan move just to try and help him develop, and he'll be able to help an Icelandic club to no end, I am sure. Again, I could really, I could keep going. We signed 53 players. 53 players arrived in February. It took about 10 seconds for the message to load when it says, Philippe Thor signed 53. Yannick Clemens is someone who's come in, model citizen, too good to turn down, 11 million release clause, and trying to get him a loan move, but he has actually played for us. As you can see, he's done quite well in the pre-season cup, which we won. So yeah. Someone who could potentially be actually a decent option for us going forward, especially if someone like Coelho ends up leaving. I don't think there's any interest in Coelho yet. No, there's no real interest in him, which is fine. I'm happy to keep him, but you never know. If we can get Clemens out on loan, I'll be happy. And as I said, realistically, the rest are loan farm signings, but we did still spend big on some players. Peter Mutzel came in. We signed him from Hertha for 13.5 mil. He's just turned 17, so that's meant we've been able to get him out on loan. He's gone to HK. He'll probably stay there with a bit of luck for about 4 or 5 seasons, develop really well, play really well for them, and then we'll bring him back. Ali Akena is someone we signed. We managed to get him for 8.5 mil. I think he had a release clause. Oh no, he didn't have a release clause. 8.5 mil up front, 12 mil potentially. We signed him because his finishing, his first touch and his heading was really good. And we're trying to get him out on loan. We're just really struggling at the moment. Scarily enough, we've not stopped there either, because we've got another 4 players joining us. And then in terms of outs, Pavlos Pertsas frustratingly is going out for pennies to Newcastle. But then a few of the loan farm signings are turning into permanent ones, because for a while, believe it or not, we were actually at risk of breaching FFP. I think just because we just signed so many players, but we're now on course to pass. Wages, our wage budget has gone up, thankfully, because our wage expenditure has rocketed in the last, well, as you can see, since February, basically, when all those players joined. Meanwhile, the league has just started, and it's 2 from 2 for us. We did actually finally lose last season. We lost the last game of the championship group to Braither, I think like 2-1. And that was our first loss in like 80 games domestically. But I mean, by that point, the league was already wrapped up, and it was like, internationals were going on. We were having to rotate. We had so many like non-official like players as well in the team. So yeah, Tamer Ben Haim has developed some absolutely horrendous cons. Hates big matches, inconsistent. We actually had a bid from Liverpool at the end of the summer, which we ended up rejecting just because if we just sold him, we wouldn't have had any real concrete options on that left-hand side. Yasuaki Takeuchi is someone I didn't touch on. Had a release clause from Kawasaki Frontale for 5 mil. He doesn't like big matches, but we brought him in basically because he's really versatile. And it's nice to have, a Japanese player in. Don't see a lot of good Japanese players, I find, traditionally in FM. Like, you get the odd one come through every couple of seasons. And it's quite nice. Obviously, you comment if you've seen different, but there's a couple of like really, really good Japanese players, but only a few. And he's one of them. And he's unlikely really to lose that, I don't think, but he's someone who could potentially just, give us a little bit. going forward. And again, he was someone who was signed very much on the assumption that we're going to lose some players in the summer. But yeah, just going back to our finances, obviously last time they were like 150 mil, and they were actually about 260, 270 mil. But just with the sheer volume of money we've spent, they've obviously dropped. I would expect that to start ramping back up again though. So with a bit of luck, that will improve next season. Hopefully, if HK can push on, like I said, they've taken a few players back off us on loan now. And the main thing really was that they lost a lot of good players when their manager changed, and that was really frustrating. But with a bit of luck, we'll do all right. We'll push on, and yeah, we'll see how we get on. Thank you so much for watching this review video again, everyone. It might well be that this season I bring it back for, actually some more games, but we'll just see how things go. If you like these sorts of reviews, let me know. If you sort of prefer these for now, while there's not a huge amount to sort of talk about other than just the overall progress on the building a nation rather than the individual games, then I'm happy to keep doing these. So take care, everyone. I will see you all very, very soon. Thank you so much for watching. Bye for now.